everybody, and welcome to this week's Bodacity Show, and welcome to the new year. I'm your host, Jeanette Anderson, hostess Jeanette Anderson, and I'm here today with the one, the only, the controversial, the contrarian, Alice Wheaton. I've known Alice for a very long time now. I don't know, how long, 20 years?
20 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Before now, we met before now. We've worked together. She's been a mentor and a source of constant inspiration and thought-provoking ideas. So let me give you her official bio, and then Alice and I will chat about how you find or create the courage to actually sell more effectively, because my goal for you this year is to actually be prosperous and have peace of mind. So we're going to talk about how to create both of those today. So let me tell you a bit more about Alice, and welcome, Alice. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
So speaking into the lives of others to help them develop the tools to transform their fears into enough courage so they can take the next right step to bring them closer to their goals is a beautiful thing to witness. I love what I do, and I do what I love, and so can you. That's a quote from Alice. Moving to the next level of courage, confidence, and success is not for the faint-hearted. It is for the mentally tough, passionate of heart, and for those who know how to take the necessary steps. Few people can do so just because that is what is required. Alice Wheaton knows about change and the challenges associated with peak performance firsthand. She has a strong background in sales. She was a nurse in the emergency ward, was one of the first female sales professionals for Xerox Canada, and now she's a consultant, author, trainer, and a professional speaker, helping others create amazing relationships, build their businesses faster and easier to achieve profit and growth-driven goals. She's from Newfoundland originally, so you might hear a bit of that accent, but she now lives in Alberta, Canada, and has been her home for the past 28 years. She's a best-selling author of many books, specifically Say No to Me, The True Power of Upside-Down Selling, which has been translated in 7 languages and counting, and her most recent book, Imperfect Forgiveness, The Miracle of Releasing Hurt Bit by Bit. It's endorsed by Dr. Deepak Chopra and Marianne Williamson, and the foreword was written by Kim Fung, I'm not sure if I'm saying that, or Pug, the girl in the Vietnam picture. This book is translated into 7 languages as well. So Alice is a prolific author and writes books for herself and also for other people, a lot of it on sales and success, some on leadership, and your work on forgiveness. So welcome, Alice. I'm really happy to see you again. It's been way too long. How are you?
Actually, we're doing really well. Haven't minded COVID one bit. I, continue to travel, and I'm vaccinated and boosted, and yeah, so we're actually doing fairly well. I'm about to host a couple from England that's one of my passions, is helping immigrants get established. And selfishly, they end up becoming great friends and family. Yeah, so Jeanette, you have worked from home for what? 30 years, 20 years? You were one of the, you, and
not much
so
of a transition at all for me. In fact, not any of a transition. I've been online before people knew what being online was.
Yeah, you were digital before I knew digital.
Yeah, that's right. So tell me a little bit about why do you care so much about sales and supporting people in finding their courage to do things like cold call or sell or be successful as leaders? Why do you care so much?
I'm not going to make it all about me, but I will say that if I hadn't had courage, I grew up in northern Newfoundland, and I was the first person, little girl, to graduate high school there. And without courage, I would be gutting fish all my life. My mom and dad insisted I go to high school, and when I decided to become a nurse in Newfoundland at the time, that was the best. That was the absolute best. I was contented until I met a woman in emergency, just gorgeous, who told me to go to Xerox and apply for a job there, but warned me they didn't hire women yet. As it happens, I went, and through a whole series of missteps and haphazard, interviews and so on, I was actually hired as the first woman at Xerox in Canada. And then I became the top salesperson, broke all the records. And I did that because of the F word, the 4-letter F word, fear.
Mm.
I learned how to take the fear, the knot in my gut and the dryness in my mouth and my racing heartbeat. I learned how to turn that into triggers for success.
Let's talk about that, because you do talk a lot about fear and how to transform it, but also, or how to use it. And certainly it makes a lot of sense that you developed your courage out of the need to uh, escape, rise above, do more, be more, have more opportunities.
And get the hell out of Dodge because I didn't want to gut fish for the rest of my life.
Exactly. And that's often what creates courage, is our back gets up against the wall against what we don't want. So then we move towards what we do.
Yeah.
So how do you think about fear? Because I know you think about it differently than most people.
I have a science background. So I did my RN and then I did a Bachelor of Science. I didn't like it a lot, but I did graduate with a 3.94 GPA. So I managed to memorize enough to get that. So I because, and then I realized that all our emotions and thoughts are actually brain-based. And so at the back of our brain, there's a very tiny gland that's sort of like an almond, like it's split in half like an almond, half on one side of the hemisphere and one on the other. And it's called the amygdala, amygdala. And its sole purpose is to feed us fear. And so what happens, it's the gland that caused you to be here. So if your ancestors hadn't had a good deal of fear, they would have been, eaten by the coyotes or bears or marauding tigers or whatever it was. And because they had enough fear, because fear says, don't go there if you feel uncomfortable. And prospecting and talking to clients and up-leveling your conversation with clients is exactly what fear loves to tell you not to do. So it says, don't go there. And so I'm highly oppositional to define as Jeanette. And so when my brain says, no, you should be careful, or, oh, don't say that because it might offend them, then I know it's just, ragging on me to try and keep me in my comfort zone. I mean, truly fear would like us all to be living in a corner, peeking through a little cloth and not going anywhere, because then it's safe. So when you pick up the phone, there's a risk. Someone's going to say no. Someone's going to get mad with you and say, who do you think you are? I'm too busy to be answering these calls, whatever it is. But we make up a story and then we believe it.
So talk a little bit about how to overcome that story, because that is one of the big things, is people have this thing running through their head of all those different things you just said. They're going to reject me. I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to impose, and yada. How do we overcome that?
First, I've just lost 30 pounds by using the same technique I'm going to tell you, is I have a conversation with that gland with my brain and say, I know you want me, like Ernest has got a thing of chocolate here. I know you want me to eat that because it'll make me feel good in a moment, but you're off base. Because one is never enough, and one is too many, and 1,000 is not enough. And so that's what I, over the years, I gained a few pounds here and there, and it was like, no. But then I said, nope, get off my back, get on with your life, fear, get off my back and trying to dominate my life. It's the same thing. Like, I reached out to a prospect, I don't know, a week and a half ago. She's it's an association, and I've done a fair bit of work with them, but whole new people is there. And I reached out, and then that person said, oh, I think we've got a great lineup. And at that point, most people would say, oh, okay, thank you. So I said, I understand totally and completely. If you've got enough speakers to fill your coming up events for the year. But have you ever had a situation where a speaker was sick or didn't show up? Yeah, that's happened. Well, I would really appreciate it if you had all my information, and I made sure to send her a copy of my books. If you would have my information on demand, so that worst case, you can make a call to me, and if I'm able, then I will. And she agreed. So it was that moment of pushback, but most people are afraid to do that, or too many are afraid to do that. And they go, oh, okay, thank you. I'll send something next.
So what was it in you that gave you the willingness to do that pushback? So that, because a lot of people will go, okay, I don't want to be pushy, or I want her to think nicely of me, or I want her approval. So what is it that you frame it as? Because I love the piece around just have a conversation with the fear and talk to it. And what is the conversation you have when fear says, don't risk disapproval?
I might swear at it.
Yeah.
I'll whitewash it a bit. I might say, piss off or die, fear, because clearly, if this is an opportunity and my brain is saying, oh no, they already have a supplier they're happy with, or they might reject me, clearly that's my fear. And I guess I'm stubborn or egoic or whatever, but but the other thing, vigilant, Jeanette, is that I'm vigilant to these messages.
So being aware of the voices and the fact that it's just a story, it's not the truth, it's a story that you're telling, and that the story is getting in the way. It's stopping you from being, doing, and having what you want.
And it's more than a story. It's a story is one thing, but being co-opted into the story is another thing. And the truth is, Jeanette, you hear a lot of talk these days about trauma, right? And people that experience trauma growing up. And I experienced my fair share too. But maybe I'll share that one story. So my mom was depressed, and she used to have me sit on a chair, and she says, I'm going to get dressed and I'm going to go out and drown myself, but you be a good girl until someone comes for you. Mm. So I think I've shared that with you before. Mm-hmm. And so I remember that. And so one day, a lady in the next community went through a terrible postpartum depression, and she drowned one of her children. So my little 8-year-old brain put 2 and 2 together and said, oh no, I'm going to be drowned. She won't just drown herself, she'll drown me too. And so in the summer, and this is northern Newfoundland, I would go to the top of the biggest wharf and dive down for as long as I could and stay as long as I could. And then I come back up and I do it again and again. Now, it didn't occur to me that I'm doing this so that if she drowns me too, I'll be safe. But looking back, I can clearly understand why I would have done that. So there was this little 8-year-old girl mastering fear. And look what happened, like what a gift. So I can't see that as tragic or toxic just because it got me the hell out of northern Newfoundland.
And often our wounds do become our strength when we look at them, address them, work with them, and come out the other side. If they just fester, then yeah, it can be a real limitation. So
I'm still not a swimmer. I can dive down. Like when in Hawaii, if we stay at a hotel with a swimming pool, I'll dive down and come back up, but I still can't swim.
Right. Well,
I'll paddle my way to the top, and that's it. Climb out. But it's the same thing. But I use the same thing with, like, when I applied at Xerox, I had 10 interviews, and one day I listened to a CD by J. Douglas Edwards, and I still have it actually. And so it talked about, and it used the Ben Franklin close. And so I went in, and the biller, when the boss, we've gone through several interviews and I don't think this is going to go any further. I said, Mr. Irwin, as Ben Franklin was one of the wisest men, and if he was faced with a situation like I'm faced with today, he would do one last thing. And if we can do that, then I'll never ask you for the job again. He said, sure. I said, well, take a piece of paper and put a line down the middle of a page. On the left page, all the reasons to hire me. On the right page side, write all the reasons not to. And so Ben Franklin, that's one of the Ben Franklin quotes. So I finally said, okay, so all the reasons to hire me is this. I'm really smart, I'm courageous, I'm adventurous, it takes a lot to get under my skin, and I'm not negative. He said, that's a double negative right there. Could you rephrase that positively? I paused for a second and said, yes, I'm positive that I'm not negative.
Okay.
And so that's that transparency. And so lo and behold, became the first woman of Xerox in Canada. And then I broke all the records.
Right. So So tell me because I think there's a brilliant piece there that lots of people who are coaches now, et cetera, can apply in their sales process. So how do you use that Ben Franklin approach of taking a look at what is working and what you do want and what you don't want? How do you use that now when you're closing clients?
Oh, good question. I have a matrix that I take my clients through, and that matrix has got 4 quadrants. And because in every single company, there's only 3 sources of new clients. There's new business from new clients, new business from existing clients, and new business from past clients. So I list these 3, and then I ask them what difficulty they have for number 1. Oh, they tell me this. What difficulty do you have for number 2? What difficulty do you have for 3? Then I say, so how long have you had these problems? Oh, years. Oh, so how many more years do you want to have this problem? I don't at all. Okay, do you need any help?
Okay, so let me just deconstruct that a bit because I think that's really great advice, and a very simple approach is to take whatever it is you coach on or train on or consult on that is the problem of your prospective client. Break it down in terms of what do they want. They want more clients or they want more revenue in this case. And here's the 3 sources of that. And what are the challenges that you're facing in these areas? So whether you're a coach or a consultant or a trainer or a wellness practitioner or a speaker, whatever you do, your client, what is the pain and the problem that they have? What are the areas that shows up as, or how does that show up? And then talk to them about that. And I love that very simple thing of how long has that been a problem and how long do you want that to be a problem? And when they say we don't,
and when do you when do you think you would like to start to have me start helping you?
And when do you think you'd like to have me start helping you? I love that.
But before that, I do more of a, and this is where being a nurse is really valuable. I do say, do you have any weaker links in the company that would compromise your success?
Okay.
Who do you have a sales manager that will know how to develop a big game hunter and closer? Mm-hmm. And so generally, quite often, the CEO doesn't have the will because they don't care about the trenches, and the sales manager don't know how, even though they think they do.
Okay, so
I need to know that, Jeanette. I need to know if the sales manager will be a pusher or a blocker for me.
Yeah, because they're either the buyer or they're the influencer of the buyer.
Yeah.
Or they're
I don't talk to, I know this is going to sound arrogant, but I only talk to CEO. I only talk to the people who can say yes with a handshake.
So let me go back.
It sounds arrogant, doesn't it? But it's not.
No, it doesn't. It sounds very practical because if you're talking to anyone else, you're not getting anywhere that's going to help you or them.
Because I can tell you, I've done a year. Remember the contracts I had in Saskatchewan with a research company for a year. We didn't have a contract. We just shook hands.
Right. Yeah.
Now a sales manager, VP, none of them can shake hands on the money.
Right.
Only the CE can shake hands on the money. Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay, because I think that's a really valuable point as well that you just talked about, because you were talking about making sales in corporate, which a lot of people who are listening to this don't necessarily do. Some do corporate sales and some are still in corporations, but most are solopreneurs and many of them work with other individuals or small companies. And I know you also do some individual coaching and work with people. So how would you modify that approach if you were talking to, let's say, a coach who wanted to grow their business? How would you talk to them about that?
They can't grow the business without someone giving them money.
Right.
And so they still have to talk to the person who has the money.
So how would you, when you're talking to them, what's your approach in terms of talking to them about that? Because I think that is something that a lot of people deal with more than, say, corporations that have those Salesforce and so on.
When I work with the coaches I coach, quotation mark, who end up selling to other coaches, they still have to know how to ask for the money. Mm-hmm. They have to know how to leverage the contacts that they already do have. And they still have to ask instead of hinting and suggesting. Listen, sometimes I'll take advantage of someone's 30-minute conversation with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have never had one person ask me straight up.
When you do a discovery call with someone, you've never had someone
They do a discovery call with me.
Yeah. And
I've never had any, I sit there waiting for the ask and they hint and suggest and I don't respond to hints.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Neither do most people. We all say, that sounds interesting. I'll have to think about it and get back to you, but it's not really a ask.
So there's so many questions I'd love to ask you and so many things that you're brilliant at. What are some of the closing phrases you use, because you were just talking about doing the ask, when you're working with entrepreneurs? So what are some of the things that you will say when you're doing the ask?
When I'm working with smaller entrepreneurs, first of all, I ask them what their situation is right now. So I do a sort of a quotation mark as an audit, right? Mm-hmm. How many clients do you have? And then this is weird because I am a big metrics person. So I say, okay, how many A prospects do you have? How many B prospects do you have? And how many C prospects? And they often go, I don't know, I just have 9 prospects. Okay, but do you have any metrics? Because what makes an A prospect for you is different from me, probably. Okay, do you have the metrics to determine what establishes a prospect as A? And what are the metrics that makes them a B? And what are metrics make them C? When people tell me they're relationship sellers, I go berserk, because not one CEO that I've ever worked with wanted a new friend. Not one ever got up this morning and said, I'm down a friend or two. I hope Alice Wheaton calls me today.
Yep. It's more about what can you do for me?
Yeah. And then when I interview clients and I say to the salesperson, what's your sales model? And oftentimes 99% will say, oh, relationship selling. So I go to the whiteboard and I say, okay, A, B, and C relationships. What are your metrics for an A relationship, B, and C? And they have no freaking idea.
Right. Yeah. So really thinking about it practically. Now, I just have time for one more question. What is, because you've written the book on cold calling, literally, cold calling for chickens,
cowards, and the faint of heart.
And the faint of heart. Love it. Nowadays, because many, if not all, people think that being online means social media. And you and I both know that is not actually sales, and in most cases people aren't even using it effectively for marketing. So
it's a suggestion. I mean, there is a suggestion,
yeah,
but it's not sales.
So what is your take on cold calling and how it fits now for most entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and even those who are working with corporate? What do you think the role of it is nowadays, and how do people need to think about it to be willing to pick up the phone?
Well, if you want to be proactive, then you need to pick up the phone and prospect, and never ever say, oh, to a CEO, oh, hi, how are you today? And understand that a CEO did not wake up down a friend or two and wanting a relationship. They want practical solutions fast from a qualified supplier. Mm-hmm. And so for me, picking up the phone and reaching out, if I see, I don't know, I love dealing with engineering, architecture, accounting firms. I love, remember that one we worked with for a year? And so what happens is that I just have a list and I reach out and say, good morning, this is Alice Wheaton. We've never met. And the reason I'm calling is that I understand if you're like 99% of the CEOs I speak with, you're interested in driving new business. And I'd like to talk to you. I can do that for you easier and faster than you ever thought possible. Mm-hmm. That's it. I don't say, how are you today? I don't try to be liked. I don't try to like them. It's just,
here's who I am. We haven't met, so that they're not sitting there wondering, who are you and where do I know you from?
My name is Alice Wheaton. We've never met, and the reason I'm calling.
Yeah, right to the point. And the reason I'm calling is you likely have this problem. I can help you with this problem.
And I can't even count the number of people I've helped with that problem.
Yeah.
And not nationally, internationally. Remember,
Yeah.
Schlumberger sent me to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to help them set up their sales university.
Michelle Williams has a question. She said, if they don't know how to establish metrics, how would you support them in getting started to establish those metrics for their potential? So if someone doesn't know what they should be setting.
So Michelle is a coach?
Yeah, actually Michelle works in corporate, but she's also a coach. She's both.
Okay.
So how do people know how to start with targets and metrics? What are some?
Oh, that's a really cool question. For their own self or for their client?
For themselves.
For themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So when I work with clients, I have a little formula, and it's not very complicated. Most things that make people successful are not complicated, unless you want to be that gal that in Theranovus right now, whatever her name is, the blood gal. You know, she built her investors out of billions of dollars. She's on trial right now. Elizabeth Theranos.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. She made her presentation so complicated.
Yeah.
That people invested.
Okay, so
I have simple. So first you have to get prospects. First you need to sit down, and I love to have a robust list of, say I'm calling engineers. I might have 25 engineering companies, and my goal then is once I've got the list of the companies, then I find out who the CEO is. Mm-hmm. And then I do some research, LinkedIn, whatever, and do a biography on the CEO. And then I prepare that so I can, but not everything, just 3 points, whatever. Just to let them know that I've done the work. And then I would look at, I could say I could talk to a CEO engineer tomorrow and say, you know what, I've worked with 85 engineering firms over the last 5 years. And at least 75% of them have gone on to have a committed, dedicated business development manager or a lead as a result of the work that I do. Now I call that credibility. And so when you're able to have these metrics, then the relationship selling is people who don't have metrics. So when I have that metric, they go, yes, I want that. And then they say, can you send me some information? And I say, I certainly would, but never in my entire life as a client really got what they needed to get from me in our first meeting with just some paper. Because when I first meet with you, it's probably going to be an hour and a half because you're going to be asked so many questions. And I don't want to rob you of that. So let's meet.
Okay, and so that's how you use your metrics in terms of your successes and your results for building credibility. But also, how do you set metrics with regards to business metrics or strategic metrics for sales targets, for example? So if someone's starting out and they want to know, like, how many prospects do I need to reach out to in order to get this many clients, that kind of thing, and how many A clients do I need, etc. How would you help someone who's starting out, let's say a coach or an independent business person, how do they think about how to set those metrics?
I just slide by the seat of my pants. If I told you anything, it would be making shit up.
Okay. So part of what
I have a list of 25. I always have a list of 25 prospects.
Yep.
I call them.
Yep.
And I've got my own competitive advantage statements, which I've reiterated a few times here.
Right.
I have my own competitive advantage statements, and then I know what their pain points are, because they don't care what my agenda is. They care of having their pain points removed.
Yeah, exactly.
I know what their pain points are. I know how I can remove them and how fast, and that be that.
Yep. Yep.
But hey, anyone that's on the line, if they email me, I'll happily send them a digital copy of Big Game Hunters and Closers and how the top 10% do it.
Okay, awesome. So if you are looking for a copy of that book, then please put your email address in the chat and I will pass that on to Alice and she will send you that copy.
And Jeanette knows that I have a like, to me, a promise made is a debt unpaid.
Mm-hmm. Yep, she definitely follows through. And here's what I would say, Michelle, in answer to your question. Alice is not very big on strategic planning. She is very big on action taking, as you can tell from the box there. And so her focus is less on what's my strategic objectives, and then let's reverse engineer that down to what kind of action do I need to take. She comes from the other side, which is a really good way to approach it as well, which is just, I'm going to continue to take action, and that will result in the results that I have. And if
Yeah.
I need more results, I'll take more action.
Yipper.
And if I'm too busy, then I'll slow down a little bit on the actions, but not so much that my funnel gets dry.
Yeah.
So what I would suggest is, Michelle, just to answer your question real quickly, one of the things you can do is take a look at what are your goals.
She can call me and we can have a conversation if she wants.
Sure. So I will put Alice's contact information in the chat here. And Heather and Beth both would like your ebook, so I will put them in there and you can forward that to them. And way to take action, ladies. One of the things that we're going to do on the 8th, so this upcoming Saturday, I'm doing a half-day quarterly planning session. And what we advocate is have 3 significant focuses that you want for your year, and then break that down by quarter. What do I need to do this quarter to achieve that? And break that into really practical action steps. Like, I'm going to have a list of 25 people and I'm going to continue to call those people, prep for the call, do a little bit of research, get on the phone, call them, tell them, I understand you have this problem. I can help you with that. Let's talk. That's the gist of it. There's all sorts of other stuff you can wrap around it, but when we overcomplicate it, then we don't take the action, because then we scare ourselves, we think it's got to be perfect. It doesn't. Just pick up the damn phone, call someone, and get into conversation with them around what they care about, what they need help with, and how you can help them solve that problem. Anything more than that is complicating the crap out of marketing and sales and is going to take you out of the game instead of putting you into the game.
Well, Jeanette, you've sat here, you've been with me while I've just pounded that phone, got appointments, and it didn't matter how good the appointment was, the phone went after another one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not complicated.
That's right. And it's not actually
simple, but not easy, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Alice, Debbie said that this made her day. Heather and Beth, I'm putting their email address in the chat for you to be able to send them the copies of the books. And if anybody else wants the books, please do reach out to Alice directly. Say that you saw the Bodacity show and you would like her contact information. And speaking of which, or her books, speaking of which, Alice, where can people find out more about you?
Alice, they could email me, alice@alicewheaton.com. And I think my brand new website is going to be live in a week.
Oh, good for you. Okay. Okay, and what for those who are more action-oriented? Okay, great. So you can reach her at alicewheaton.com or email her at alice@alicewheaton.com. What I know is that Alice is an exceedingly generous person in every way, shape, and form, and will be
Newfie, right?
Yeah, exactly. Will be more than willing to support you and be prepared to be challenged on your limitations and on the standard thinking. Alice is not for the faint of heart. She is for those who are committed with heart to actually being more successful.
You said it perfectly. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, my pleasure.
Our new year with courage and a commitment to being action-oriented. I appreciate that about you. You're always inspiring that in people around you. So thank you for being here, and thank you, ladies, for being here. And I look forward to you having a prosperous 2022. I've dubbed this year 2020 Together, which is about co-creating, collaborating, and really coming back out into connection in practical ways that moves everybody forward faster. So thank you for that and for being here. Have a bodacious year, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.